It's about faith to believe. It's about hope to receive. It's about love to give life. It's about transplant life. With me, Ms. Vinny. Hey everyone, it's Miss Vinny. It's Thursday at 5 o'clock p.m. and it is raining in Southern California. But we are here tonight, and I am so happy to introduce you guys to some, and because he is known nationally, my new friend Brian Martindale is here, and
Good
he is
evening.
a kidney donor from where you from?
Bay
Bay
City,
City.
Michigan.
Hey, Brian Martindale.
How are you tonight?
I
Glad to
am
see you.
absolutely marvelous. I have been looking forward to this night all week long. I've been anticipating your
Oh,
visit with
well, thank
about
you.
transplant life. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Absolutely.
So we are going to talk about all of the amazing things that you are doing through your nonprofit organization, Kidneys for Kids.
Thank
But
you.
first,
Yep.
let's talk about your personal connection to transplant, where it all started for you.
Okay. Well, for me, it started in 2011. I first met a young gentleman in Bay City, Michigan, who needed a kidney transplant because of a clothing brand that I founded. And it was to do with a band wearing a certain t shirt that I made and being invited to a show that night and being introduced to this young man, not for the sake of donating a kidney, but he was trying to get on the transplant list at the time and he needed money raised for him. He didn't have medical insurance and a transportation back and forth 100 miles each way to the transplant center he was going to. So that's why
Okay,
I
so
was
you
introduced.
just said a whole lot. You just said a whole lot. Okay.
Okay.
He needed to raise funds
Yep.
for being able to get his transplant, a kidney transplant. And he
Yep.
had to travel 100 miles to and
Hmm.
from to get to his appointments and things like that, right?
Yeah, at the University of Michigan, because we're 100 miles away
Wow.
from there. And to go through the qualifications and stay qualified, he needed, to do that regularly.
So I
And so
wanted you
that's
to emphasize that because, people need to understand, all of the trials and tribulations we go through in this transplant life. That's so, so important. So he came
absolutely.
to you for help, right?
Yeah, well, Hugo Ferrer, the leader of the band Tantric, lead singer, introduced us that night, and he had this in his mind that maybe together we can help Brent, having the band's logo and something on your T-shirts, and we sell it and we raise money for him. So that was the idea after I first met this gentleman, and that 6 months later, after getting to know him and seeing everything a person goes through on dialysis, I'd never really seen a person up close going through he went through almost total organ failure twice in the first 6 months I knew him.
Wow.
Total renal failure. And you seeing how sick he was going through a particularly difficult time at the time. And I studied as far as paired donation. I already knew I wasn't his blood type, and I
Mhm.
didn't understand anything about kidney donation or living donation, or especially paired donation, where I would have donated to somebody I matched and got him a voucher in a sense, and then he would have got the next kidney coming forward to him. So
Yeah.
I ended up testing anonymously to the University of Michigan after he was registered for the program in 2011, and I passed. And unfortunately, after finding out I was going to be a viable donor, he was medically disqualified for
Oh,
health reasons for a period of time.
oh,
So yeah, we stayed, in contact, and I stayed advocating for him. But 2012 came around, and nothing had happened, and he was going to probably not be listed for 3 to 5 years, let's say, at that time. He knew that. So he had told me, Brian, if you've gone this far, if you see somebody you could help, don't hesitate. And lo and behold, I'm painting a store for my clothing brand. I have construction experience. So I had constructed the store. And on the last day of construction, painting, like you see in our studio here that I did, I ran out of chewing gum. And I had stopped smoking, thank God, years ago. And I had a fetish for chewing gum. So I walked to the little party store in our downtown by the store I had. And on the right on the counter, when I walk in, is this newspaper, this beautiful 10-year-old girl in a princess outfit. And they just had a benefit for her. And she needed a kidney. And
Oh wow.
in the story, he gave her blood type, which was my blood type, A positive. So I went home with that newspaper, turned on the CBS Evening News in our area, and lo and behold, there she is again on TV.
So
I took
you were
that as a
getting
kind of
bombarded with confirmations about helping this young
absolute,
10-year-old girl who needed a kidney. That's incredible.
yeah.
So what did you
And
do about it?
well, I called her mother anonymously back then. You could do that still, and just ask some questions. And I decided to test for her. And my wife, now I've been married for 8 years, but my wife and I had just started dating like 6 weeks before this. And to tell her that, guess what? I'm going to become a kidney donor to somebody I don't even know. That
Wow. What year was that, Brian?
that was 2012 in September, because we opened that store in September, and that's when I picked up the newspaper. And that next week, I called the University of Michigan, and I'd already tested there, and I said, "Can I be retested for Jessica Shireen? I just read this story." And so 2 weeks later, went through my test, and they didn't find out until I found out the first week of November that I was a viable donor for her, a perfect match. We matched
Wow.
on, for people that don't understand, like you're saying, on all 6 factors. So blood type, tissue type, and genetics. We matched as if we were siblings. We never met, and we lived 4 blocks apart.
Are you
So
serious? That's
yeah.
incredible.
So I use that story today when I'm motivating donors, that very honestly, your donor could be right around the corner. It's just a matter of them finding you or hearing your story.
Yeah.
So, so I knew 2 weeks before they knew, and her and her mother, Jessica never had a father, but her and her mom, who had stood under our Walmart sign to get this attention, I didn't bring that up. Mom had just was so desperate to find Jessica a kidney donor. She was sitting
Mm.
at her desk one day and just took a big pink piece of construction paper and drew on it. My daughter's in kidney failure, can't lose her. Please help me. And she went and stood under a Walmart sign where she'd get the most attention. And that's what brought the news and the newspaper. And that's how I found her.
Hey, you
So
gotta do what you gotta do. You got what they say: a closed mouth don't get fed, and you gotta
yeah,
from
yeah,
from works to your faith and take
yeah,
action and get
yeah.
your
And that's what
story
she
out
did.
there.
She
Yeah.
stood there, and people offered her money, but nobody offered to test for Jessica.
Mm,
And she kept telling people, money won't buy a kidney for my daughter.
yeah.
And but anyway, I found the story. I did the testing, and then I found out the beginning of November, and they found out the day before Thanksgiving. And they said in the next news interview that I should have heard them 4 blocks away because they screamed so loud when
Oh
they got
my
the
goodness. And how did
so.
you feel finding that out that you were a perfect match?
Oh, it was exhilarating, and it was scary because I'm still learning. Then I'm not like now knowledgeable about kidney donation and what I'm going
Yeah.
to go through. And then you hear the detractors, even back then on social media. I mean, first of all, I stayed anonymous, so it was just my friends and immediate family and people around me who knew I was going to be the donor.
Mm,
And I didn't have any detractors there. As far as I have one paternal son that's 40 years old, and David's like, Dad, you're doing something great for this little girl. Please, don't worry if I need a kidney in the future or something. Don't think like that. Just do this.
mm.
And my wife now, who was my girlfriend then, was right there with me, and said, "You're doing the right thing." And yeah, it was put upon my heart that it was the right thing to do. So I planned on staying anonymous. And here's the surreal story. A couple weeks later, there's another benefit for Jessica. And so with my clothing brand, I signed up to be a vendor. So it's held in a big theater, and I'm standing right behind her mom and her that night at their table, knowing I'm her donor, but they don't
Oh,
know
wow.
I'm the donor. We were still a novice at that time, and I sold my merchandise that night, and I gave the funds to her, for the benefit,
Oh.
and yeah, and walked out, without saying anything. And
Oh, we
so,
have a picture, a video
oh,
actually
okay,
of your Jessica when she was in the hospital, right? Now,
yep,
let me see. I gotta make sure I do.
hours
Yeah.
after the kidney donation.
That
So
was hours after the donation,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So how it went was,
Hours after the donation, and you were standing beside her bed? So you
yeah,
recovered quickly, huh?
yeah. Well, we were like I said, we were first introduced, just so you know, by a friend of mine who used to work for CNN, because I had told her that I was the donor, and she reached out to them because she was trying to do a documentary on kidney donation, and she asked if she could be the one to introduce us. So we were introduced 2 weeks before the surgery, and then we rode down together in a donated limousine, and that's the only times we had talked. And we spent an hour and a half together. And I went into the hospital. She went her way. And January 11th, 2013, they did my surgery. And U of M is connected the main hospital to the Children's Hospital by a bridge. And took my kidney over there, and she got it, and everything went perfectly. And that was the picture 48 hours later. They wheeled me over to
Oh,
see
okay. I get it.
for the
Yeah. So
first
even
time.
48 hours later, you were able to go
Oh,
over
yeah.
there. You were
I
strong
was
enough
up.
to do that.
I was up 12 hours after surgery walking the halls. In fact, our CBS station did a phone interview with me at 11 o'clock at night while I was walking around the halls. I was too uncomfortable to sleep. So they called and said, "Can we interview you?" And so I did that. It's within 24 hours of my surgery. But yeah, we saw each other there. And then I went home after 72 hours, and then she went home after 10 days. So, but yeah, she was
Wow.
10 years old there, and today she is 22 and
And here
healthy.
she is today. That's
Michigan University.
incredible.
Thank
Isn't
you.
that amazing?
Well, and to see her like, today, we were strangers, and every year if it started out when she was younger, we'd have a pizza party or something. And then my wife and I started going to her events at school and seeing her in plays and things. And now she's like a daughter to us. She's really that close,
Yeah.
and she's on our board of directors for the organization we started, Kidneys for Kids, and she's attending there in the picture, Eastern Michigan University. And you have a girl, somebody tell you at 10, I'm going to do great things and help others because you helped me when I grow up. And then to do it, she's getting a doctorate degree in neuroscience, and she,
Wow.
and she's going to be working, in research. That's what she wants to do in a laboratory setting. So, and she's doing it. And here's a good one. She came home, came home for Christmas, and my birthday's the day before. She came home to surprise me. And she said, "Guess what?" She said, "Your kidney traveled this year to Rome and to Tuscany. And in the spring, it's going to the Caribbean."
That's how she talks about your kidney is still your kidney,
I
huh?
know. Yeah,
Beautiful.
that's how we talk about it.
That's such a beautiful story, and it makes it all worthwhile to see her doing so many
Oh,
amazing things with that
absolutely.
second chance at life that your kidney gave her. You know,
I'm so
that
glad
God
I
is
did
just
it.
good. That's a beautiful story. Well,
Yeah.
Brian Martindale, you are a force to be reckoned with yourself. You are quite the entrepreneur. You mentioned your clothing line.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about you, sir, and I know the reason why you started Kidneys for Kids, but give us a little bit of background about Brian Martindale of Bay City, Michigan. Who are you?
Well, let's see. Grew up with older parents who had been through World War II. I wasn't born until
Mhm.
my dad was 52 years old. In fact, we're celebrating his 115th birthday this year.
Are
What
you
would have been?
serious?
Yeah, what would have
Oh,
been?
okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, but yeah, to have older parents, I think, was a blessing. They were the last of the greatest generation, And so I had that everything passed down from them, people that have been through the Depression and World War II, and all the things people went through, farming, back in the 1920s, like my mother did, and working on assembly lines during World War II, my mother welding landmines, my dad building cars and ships when he couldn't go off to the Army. So I was brought up with parents that were close to me. By the time I was born, my dad had mesothelioma from building ships in World War II from the asbestos.
Oh, wow.
So the positive side of that was we were very close. We spent a lot of time together when I was young, and I learned from, like I say, from people that had great values. My mother was a devout Christian, and she was always in our church during. My brother went to Vietnam, for example, when he was 17 years old in 1967. I was only 6; he was 13 years ahead of me. So, seeing her, the ladies' aid, I remember, all the ladies, making baked goods and all the packages they would send over to the boys in Vietnam, and all the things she did like that over the years. And just, the values they instilled in me. And then I had a favorite aunt who was very special, who used to manage part of the University of Michigan. And so starting when I was 6 and 7, I would spend time with her. And I was 7 years old and working as a busboy, or working as a messenger, running things across to, to other buildings in the university in the 1960s. So having these great people, that unfortunately I didn't have for long because of their age when I was born, but gave me those values, I think, that contributed to, me becoming a kidney donor and me caring
Yeah.
about these, the children that we take on now with Kidneys for Kids, and the adults we've been able to help over the years. I've been a mentor now too for the University of Michigan Transplant Center for 10 years. So I'm one of the people that takes you through the process of becoming a living kidney donor, like the
Oh,
guide.
wow.
Yeah. And, you have to have somebody with experience to understand that. So that's what us
Absolutely.
mentors do. And then, other things I've done in my life, that clothing brand I started. First, I was an entrepreneur in the 1990s. I bought an A&W franchise. I'd come out of
A&W Root Beer?
A&W Root Beer. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was my favorite place, man. What are you talking about?
Oh, it was
We
too.
used to
We
go
have,
every weekend when I lived in Santa Barbara as a kid. I
okay.
loved
Yeah.
A&W Root Beer.
We still have,
Mhm.
from where I'm sitting in our studio, we have a drive-through A&W that's only open in the summer, about 10 blocks from here. That's, from the 1950s with the car hops and everything.
Like the
And
original
the
A&W Root Beer.
original, yeah. Mine
I'm
was
so
in,
impressed. I am
yep,
so impressed.
mine was in a food court, my restaurant, set up in a food court of this mall when it first opened in the 1990s. But we made our root beer on site, 120 gallons at a time, still made like that today. And that was my first experience in business. I had come out of about 8 years working in civil engineering for the Army Corps of Engineers. That's what I'd done after high school.
Mm.
And moved from that into this entrepreneurship. Bought another franchise business after A&W, which was unfortunately a franchise that robbed all of its franchisees. And so I had
Whoa.
good experience with A&W, the bad experience with the other franchise I won't even mention.
Okay.
And and from there, I had always been handy. My From my grandparents building, the church that I was brought up in, the Swedish descent, and all my uncles being carpenters and that. So I'd always worked on and off in carpentry and painting and other things, and I ended up contracting in the early 2000s. And then I was working in Las Vegas for a couple of years, and my son came out and went to college at UNLV. And we came up with this premise for this little clothing brand. It's only t-shirts and hoodies and tank tops. But anyway, the designs all pertain to kindness, unity, equality, diversity. So he
Okay.
used to wear all these catchy, off-color saying type shirts. And we came, let's do something opposite that everybody else does. Let's make something positive. And then we decided if we sell something, let's give part of it to doing something good. So from the start, we gave 10% of our profits to charity. And now
That's
that
just
clothing
nice. You
brand,
know that, right? You did that
yep,
on purpose, huh?
yep. And
Yeah.
now that clothing brand is 16 years old and it's sold nationally. And now we give 20% to Kidneys for Kids every time we sell something.
See, you
So
are
we
a
tie those
natural
two things
giver.
together. Yeah,
That's the God
everything.
in you Brian Martindale. You know
If I'm
that,
going to
right?
work, I'm 63 now, and I decided with Kidneys for Kids, as far as our initial mission to find 100 kidney donors for 100 children, I'll tell you more a little more about that mission, but I see myself working till 68 to 70 before I just become maybe an advisor to Kidneys for Kids. We've got funders
So
of
let's talk
national.
about that. Let's
Yeah,
talk
let's do
about
that.
Kidney for Kids. I'm sure your experience as a living donor, living kidney donor,
Yeah.
sparked the fire in you to further your mission to help children who are in
Yeah.
desperate need of a kidney transplant. So you founded Kidneys for Kids.
Yep.
Tell us
Yeah.
about that.
Well, in 2021, I had to retire from painting. I've been in the union, and I'm still a union member for the last 10 years of my career, running jobs in different areas. But anyway, my shoulders went. I had both shoulders surgically rebuilt, and my doctor told me, it's time to do something else, Brian. I put Humpty Dumpty back together once, and I can't do it again twice without a lot of pain. So do me a
Wow.
favor, take care of yourself. So my wife and I decided I had always wanted to help children or just people in general who were battling kidney disease more. And then we started studying and we found out there were over 2,000 more kids who need a transplant today, almost 10,000 more on dialysis around the country. And then, of course, there's
2,000
100,
more kids that needed transplants in the whole country.
yeah, in the whole country. So
Wow.
there's 100,000 people on the list, or approximately that every day, adults and children
Right.
together. So out of that 100,000, about 2,000 are kids, and they need transplant today, and then about 9,800 to 10,000 more on dialysis, which means at some point they will need a kidney. So that sparked me in 2022. We came up with this name, Kidneys for Kids, that we wanted to help children especially. But it first started with just a drive around the country in an electric car. The trip I took in 2022 was just kind of promotional. GM gave me an electric vehicle to drive. I found out it was no way to drive across the country right now. We do
An
not.
electric vehicle.
Yeah,
That
no,
must have been a challenge trying to
yeah,
find a charging station.
yeah. I mean, around cities, fine, and the short trips, but going cross country and back then, even 3 years ago now, it was a challenge stringing together charging stations. You're always watching. I've got 50 miles to zero here. Where am I going to go? Where's my ad?
Right,
Where's my charging
right,
station? There's not just,
right.
there's the gas station over here.
And then some
So
of those charging stations that pop up on your GPS, they don't
they
function.
don't work when you get there. I found
Right.
that out the hard way. I went down
Yeah.
to the National Kidney Foundation on this first trip from Chicago to Jackson, Mississippi, and I wouldn't have made it unless a nice, kindly Nissan dealer allowed me to charge at their. And they usually didn't let anybody charge but a Nissan, and I'm driving a Chevy. And they're
Right.
like, "Yeah, we heard what you're doing. Please go ahead and charge." Or I would have been held up another day. But it was not fun. But what it did was it connected me with kids per se, because at first it was going to be interviews at National Kidney Foundation offices. And then I find out they're really not involved and really not fired up like they told me before I left. And all of a sudden, my visits are getting canceled and put off, and we're busy that day. So I ended up making my own schedule and connecting with small kidney foundations like Mississippi Kidney Foundation. I did interviews down there. And then I ended up getting a call from a parent who had saw me online. And that started the specific child thing. They said, we have an 18-month-old boy. He needs a kidney right now. And we see you're advocating and doing this driving trip. Would you consider doing an interview with us? We're in Virginia. So I came all the way back to Michigan from Mississippi, and then went all the way up to Virginia and back in that electric car to just do this
Wow.
one TV interview. And I get out there, and the day we're going to do it, we're waiting for the news crews to show up. Everything's scheduled ahead of time. I'd set up this TV interview at their home and met this little boy, Cooper, 18 months old, needs a kidney. And the
Mm.
news crews all call and say, we're sorry, we can't come today, but there's been a murder. So instead of going to the story of saving a boy's life, of course,
Saving a
all the news
boy's life, they
crews,
go to something else. So wow.
something else. So even though I'd driven the 1,000 miles, the interview didn't happen until I got back home. I did my part by Zoom, but the interview caught where it got attention of people that didn't know Cooper. They came forward and registered for him, and his dad ended up ultimately being the best donor. match.
Oh, okay.
So we got a kidney from dad, but that interview sparked 5
So the
kidney.
18-month-old got a kidney from a full-grown adult?
Yep, and that's what my message, and that was astounding to me. That was a learning experience for me. I didn't know that a child as young as 8, he was 19 months when Cooper got the kidney, but it depends on the size and weight. The average is at 2 years old, you can give your full-size kidney to a child as young as 2.
Wow.
So that's part I really caught my eye and really sparked me that I'd met this little boy. I'd seen their home and did this interview with Casey, his mother, Casey Pfaff, who is now our board of directors vice president. So that was a godsend meeting. Me driving out there doing this interview, it wasn't for waste. And so Cooper got the kidney from his dad, but the interview sparked 5 other kidney donations from people that couldn't donate to Cooper. So that
Okay.
set off with missions like, okay, now I get it. I can use the press over here. I don't want them to see me. I want to get the attention over here and say, look, I'm 63 now. I just turned 63 this year, but I was 61 then. And I'm running around the country with the energy of a 30-year-old. And I'm telling people, just gathering these interviews. You can do the same thing, live an active life like me, and save a little boy like
Yeah.
Cooper.
Yeah,
So
that's powerful.
that became the mission and the spark behind Kidneys for Kids. And my wife and I put a good amount of our retirement aside and started in 2022 as a formal nonprofit. And then I took the first formal trip that year, and for the first formal trip actually in 2023. So then I drove each year now. I drive a sponsored Chevrolet, and we put logos on it to make it look like a NASCAR, basically, to get
Like that
attention.
really cool car I showed in the beginning. I like that car.
Yeah. And so the premise now is the next year I drove across the country. I did 7,000 miles, and then last year I did 10,000 miles. And what I do is,
10,000 miles driven by yourself?
yeah, by myself.
You did all the driving by yourself?
Yep. And I booked all the TV interviews and things like that the first 2 years. I mean, last year I got help and assistance, and this year I'll tell you more about what's going to happen this year. It's going to be much bigger, but you know about that. But anyway, so in 2023, I started out with a formal trip where I schedule an interview here, and just follow city to city to city, get these families on TV. And now that's sparked 12 kidney donations. We're hoping for
That's
number
great.
13. We just had a call on a boy today, which would be number 13. So now that's become a whole nonprofit. The initial goal was 100 kidneys for 100 children, and I found out what an effort that's going to be. I believe we can do it over the next 5 years. We're just, like I say, hopefully approaching kidney number 13. But yeah, you
Say
have
that
to
again. You're approaching kidney number 13. I was going to ask you how
yeah,
many children have been blessed by Kidneys
yeah.
for
This will
Kids.
be if Aiden Blackburn gets his, it'll be number 13. We had number 12 a couple weeks ago.
That's
So
incredible.
thank you. Well,
You're
like I
out
say, we
there
got a long way.
helping to
Yeah.
save lives. You're doing God's work.
Yep. And so now in driving cities to cities, we're going to talk a little bit about the TV station we just started, our own TV channel. So now when I go out in 2025, I'll be taking a trip with a cameraman next to me, sitting in the car and filming. And then we're going to broadcast on our own TV channel live as it happens with each interview, the day by day. And then the filming will be turned into half-hour episodes and broadcast for a full season until I go back out the next year. And the idea is we visit children like this year. We'll start out visiting kids I met last year, and hopefully they've all been transplanted. And then we go on to the next child and the next child and the next child.
That's beautiful. So we're talking about Good Karma Network now.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what you're going to do. You're going to broadcast all of these incredible shows from
Yep.
your Driving for Life efforts. Yeah. That's what you call it.
The trip is called Driving for Life, and then I have a show on our TV channel called Drive for Life. So this TV channel came about after 3 years of effort between my good friend Charles Conley, who's our executive producer, and myself. This has been a recording studio for a number of years and a very successful one. And Charles has a master's degree in audio and video engineering, and it produced very successful records. And he started working more in media the last few years. And actually, he now has 5 movies he's produced that are on Tubi right now.
Oh,
he's that well versed. So we had to find a platform. What our idea was just to find a platform we could use for these trips to broadcast them live. And it turned into this whole platform that contains a TV guide. We're on Roku right now. By summer, we'll be on Apple TV and we'll be on Amazon. So our platform allows us to have a main channel. We have regular scheduled programs with TV commercials, just like network television. And some of our programs are Drive for Life. I do an episode every week to go along with my trip. So each week, like tomorrow, I'll record an interview right here by Zoom, or I do them live in the studio with a family who needs a kidney transplant for their child. We have other shows like The Voice of the People, which every week we have two of our hosts. They interview community leaders, people that run nonprofits, people doing good things in our world. We have shows about STEM education. We have a vegetarian cooking show. I
Oh,
hear
that's
we're
a
going to
good
have.
one.
I hear we're going to have a show out of maybe Pasadena, California, and
Yeah,
maybe we'll talk about that later. But
yeah, it's
yeah,
about
we're looking forward
transplant
to that.
life.
Yeah,
We're coming to Michigan. Okay, so
yeah.
where are we able to see all of these incredible shows that you're producing?
Right now, if you have Roku TV, all you do is download Good Karma TV. That's the app. If you
Okay.
don't have Roku, you can go to kidneysforkids.org, our
Yep.
website. And we're live right there on the home page. You can go right to the channel. But if you go to the channel, you'll see we have on demand and live TV, just like Netflix or Amazon. And then we have sub channels under that for wonderful shows like Transplant Life. And,
Yes, yes.
and,
We've been
and
talking behind the curtain, y'all. We've been talking about it. Mhm.
But the idea now is since we have these sub channels available, is you'll have your regular show every week, and our other contributors are regular shows, 24/7 format, Monday through Sunday, and then each contributor has their own specific sub channel where people can go to watch their dedicated content anytime.
That's
So
so
there you
powerful.
go. And then yeah, to stream this live this summer, you will not have seen a real reality series like we're going to broadcast this summer, because on live unscripted as it happens with these families, interviews in hospitals with doctors and transplant specialists, meeting people like you along the way, doing events in different cities. And yeah, we're just going to keep doing this. We'll pass, God, this year I've already done 22,000 miles in the last 3 years. So by the time I finish this venture in 5 years, I'll probably have passed about 75,000 miles, 3 trips around the world.
That's incredible. And you and your lovely wife Wendy, you guys pay a lot of the expenses for your trips,
Yeah.
don't you?
Well, I mean, we have in the last couple of years, we're bringing aboard now national sponsors, and I knew that would take a period of time. But getting this national exposure and these kids transplanted and stuff, now we have, like in the Midwest here, Meyer stores are big. They've come aboard as a sponsor. And the International Painters Union, which I'm still a member, our president out in Baltimore came aboard this year. So we're getting corporate sponsorship, and now that we're also providing education with this TV channel. In our city, we are going to have students starting in the fall that we're going to be teaching audio and video production, broadcasting, podcasting, social media management. So that enabled us to get educational grants
Oh,
and move
good.
forward like the PBS station would, because we are a nonprofit. The Kidneys for Kids owns the station and the channel, and so we can take on sponsors in a tax deductible way.
That's amazing. So, as a living kidney donor, what would you say? What advice would you give to someone who was considering becoming a living kidney donor? What would you
I will
say?
tell them. I will tell them first of all, it will be one of the most rewarding experiences of your life. Obviously, if you're a mother or father and have children, grandchildren, obviously those are very rewarding experiences. I have both, and my lovely wife. But there's no experience like giving part of yourself. I mean, it's surreal to me. When Jessica, when I told you that, hey, my kidney just went to Rome. My kidney went to Tuscany, and it's part of me that I'm here, and it's there. It's part of her.
Yeah,
It's the truth. So I tell people that it'll be one of the most rewarding and monumental things you'll ever do with your life, especially if you get to know, because there are people that do donate anonymously who never meet their
anonymous.
recipient.
Yeah,
But meeting, if you have the chance that I've had to watch, especially a little girl grow up who is sick, And the day you met her, she was just so white and pale and frail looking. And then you saw the picture 48 hours after transplant. And when they wheeled me over, she looked like a different girl than I'd ridden down with. Let alone today, 22, she's as tall as me. She's just gorgeous. She's the kindest soul, you would ever meet, and just, helping others and just making me so proud. And where else could I find that? No amount of money will ever buy you the feeling that I feel, and
Yeah.
I look at people, that, I admire people that have wealth that use it for positive things. But I look at the people that don't, and I think it's your loss. If you have the chance to do something wonderful like this, number one, this doesn't cost money. This is
Yeah,
this
they
is going to
cover everything when you become a living organ donor, isn't that right?
right. Well, you have no, and there's some things we'll cover too. You do have additional expenses. Your recipient's insurance pays for your surgery and your aftercare. But things
Okay.
like incidentals, if you're far away, like me at U of M, if you had to go there, stay overnight for aftercare visits, or you need assistance, maybe you're not recovering as fast as most people. And then you have 6 weeks off of work. Like when I did this, I was going back into construction, and you can't lift more than 10 pounds for 6 weeks. So, those things sometimes detract people from becoming living donors. But they are obviously there are funds, there are organizations like ours that help with
Uh-huh.
those costs. But no amount of money obviously can buy a kidney donor and a living kidney. And I tell people no amount of money will ever give you satisfaction or joy or pleasure in life that you will get from saving someone else's life. Period.
It truly is the ultimate act of kindness. It really is.
Well, yeah,
And
I mean,
what
it,
better
give
legacy
it
to
to
leave
yourself.
someone than, to give someone else a second chance at life? That's just incredible.
Yeah, I think Stacy's mom really puts it well. What better legacy could you live and could you give? I mean, first of all, as a living donor, I hope my kidney lives to be 130, 140. Jessica never needs another second transplant like most do. But with medical advances now, living kidney lasts in the average of 15 to 20 years. And that's where we tell people that's the advantage of getting a living kidney donor over a kidney over a deceased kidney. Not that a deceased kidney doesn't save lives, but a deceased kidney will function on an average of 8 to 10 years. Living kidney 15 to 20, and some living kidneys have functioned over 50 years.
Hmm.
And there's less chance of rejection and better chance of matching and success with a living kidney. So,
Do you get some kind of resistance though from when you're doing your travels and you're trying to talk to people? Do you ever
oh
run
yeah,
into brick
yeah,
walls with people and organizations and
even,
stuff like that? How do you
yeah.
handle that?
Well, even back when I donated, when it first came out, when I was revealed, on the news, that I had comments there on Facebook, and it wasn't that cruel back then as it is now, that it's against God's will. If God wanted you to give a kidney, he would have done it, or things like this, comments like that. Jessica's mom had no right to stand on that street corner and ask for an organ from somebody else. I mean, come on. Oh, yeah. And I'll get comments today like, yeah, religion or whatever. I've had it right to my face. It wasn't meant for you to give that organ to Jessica. Why would I ever give a living organ of myself to somebody? Straight up, and I just have to smile and say, I'm sorry you feel that way, but have a nice day. God bless
Yeah,
you.
I'm sorry you feel that way. Yeah, truly,
You know,
because organ
really, you
donation
don't know
saves
if
lives,
you're,
it saved my life, and I will be the first to tell you that my transplant journey was not only physical, but it was a very spiritual journey. You
Mhm.
know, and
Sure.
any other transplant patient that is waiting will tell you that. Because that is such an opportunity for ministry and to give
Hmm.
prayer to someone else. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
it's a very spiritual journey. And I also told someone else, I said, why do you think hospitals have chapels? Because they understand that it's a
Yes.
spiritual journey,
Hmm.
and that we have to submit ourselves to our creator, not only in a time of need, but we should be living a life connected to God every single day. But it's a
Absolutely.
very spiritual journey. And I've talked to many, many, many recipients and donor families as well
Hmm.
who concur that statement, and I talked to someone last week, a couple of weeks ago, my friend, Pastor Clinton Britt, And
Okay.
he shared a story where he was visited by an angel in his hospital room. I cannot tell you how many people have shared those similar stories. So God is definitely in the organ transplant business.
Uh, I've never really talked about it, but for me, it was my father that visited me.
Hmm.
Yep. Yeah, and
He
I mean,
you
it
know
was
you
like
were
he
doing
was
the
right
right
there.
thing, huh?
Yeah, yeah, he was just like right there, and it was just a yeah, in his favorite trench coat and his favorite hat with just a smile on his face. So there you
That's
go.
beautiful. There you go. So you know, RFK Jr. I don't usually talk about politics, but I thought this
Yeah,
was interesting because I saw that they confirmed RFK Jr. as our Secretary of State, Secretary of
right.
Health and Human Services. I'm
Helping.
sorry. And
Right.
I also heard him say that children with chronic diseases was going to be his primary focus. What do you think about that?
I would applaud that if that includes children that are going through things like this, chronic kidney disease, and other chronic diseases, anything for children. I applaud that, and I'll get right behind that. If he'll actually do that, and especially help us to further living kidney donation and organ donation in general to children, I'm 100% for that.
Yeah, me too. I think we should support his efforts definitely if he is going to get involved in transplant.
Yep. Yeah, if he's going to follow through with what he says, I will obviously keep an eye on that. And I'm going to be in
Yeah.
Washington, in fact, in May for the American Kidney Fund. And I
See, that's why
allocated.
I asked you that because I remember you said something about you going to Washington. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so the last 2 years now, or last year starting, I started as an ambassador for the American Kidney Fund. I believe in their mission to further, living in organ donation. But they work on a lot of legislation. So I got to take part in our state in Lansing this last year on a bill that now gives a person donating in Michigan a $10,000 one-time tax credit. And so, yeah,
Is
for the
that just
expenses.
in Michigan?
Well, no, it's in other states, but before we did ours, they have living donor other laws in different states. But before we approved this, we were way behind other states as far as we had a grade F as far as supporting transplantation. So that really moved us up the list. But in
Wow.
Washington, they're also working on similar things, tax credits, not only for people that donate, but for employers, for example, getting a one-time tax credit for your employee that you will give the 6 weeks paid leave as you would for somebody for maternity. So we're working on those kind of things actively, and that's why I love joining their efforts. And I'll be in Washington again the first week of May, speaking to senators and new senators and congressmen that I met last year about the same laws that we want passed. Yeah, I'll keep working on that the rest of my career too. Legislation that anything that furthers organ donation.
That's right. You know, we're live streaming. We got friends out there. My friend Cheryl McCain is here. And she is
Hey,
also, Brian, she's a living kidney donor as well.
hey, Cheryl. I'm glad you tuned in. Good to see you, and
Yes,
God
Cheryl
bless
is
you.
amazing. I love her. Yeah, you were finally able to find me, Cheryl. Here we are. We are live on Facebook at About Transplant Life with my dear friend Brian Martindale. And he is a living kidney donor and he is the founder of Kidneys for Kids. I just love Cheryl. She's been a faithful supporter of About Transplant Life. And so I'm
Okay.
glad to see that you are here. And my wonderful son, Tony, is here, of course, helping me out along the way. Thank you for being here, Tony. Tony's amazing. Tony likes root beer floats. He likes the fact that, he likes the fact that
Oh,
you were a owner of
yeah,
A&W Root Beer, right?
yeah. Now
That's
I'm
really,
taking my grandchildren there to A&W every year when they're open.
yeah, that's really, really great. I always ask people this question, and so I'm gonna ask you, what are you most grateful for?
Most grateful for, um, God, it can't be just one thing. I mean, I'm most grateful for my wife, for all the years I waited for somebody as special as her, and for her to, stick with me through donating a kidney and other things I went through in the last 3 years, my shoulder surgeries and pulling out of the blue. Guess what, honey? We're going to found a nonprofit for children nationwide, and we're going to make a difference. And
Did she get more than she bargained for?
She got a lot more than she bargained for. But for to see her face, and when these kids become our kids, like she always tells me, she says, Brian, every one of these kids you've taken on, Aiden, whatever, Jessica was yours, they all become your kids. You'll stick with them for the rest of their lives after they get their kidneys. And she's right. It's just, if you remember Jerry Lewis, in his telethons, I grew up with that. Maybe that's where I got that from. Yeah, he did the muscular dystrophy telethon for all those years.
All those
I got
years.
to see one of his last recordings. I lived in Las Vegas and I was moving back in 2008, but in 2007, I saw one of the last Jerry Lewis telethons recorded in Las Vegas. And God bless him, for all those years, he'd come on and he'd work to get Jerry's kids, the money they needed for research. Yeah. So, I mean, these kids all become my kids, and it's all about finding them living kidney donors and restoring their health and finding ways we can prevent kidney disease. We're working on kidney health programs with hospitals now. We became part of the Oregon Procurement Transplant Network this year. We're only the 9th public organization that are members, and only the other kidney organization is National Kidney Foundation. So being a member of the Oregon Procurement Transplant Network is what governs all transplantation in the United States. So to be given membership along with transplant hospitals and organ procurement organizations was quite an honor. And it's allowing us to make these bridges directly now with hospitals that I'm traveling to every year. And we want to build programs with each one of them in kidney health and promote any child that they have, doing these stories on them, giving them TV exposure and getting them a kidney donor. You have to reach at least 50,000 people. I mean, reach that person 50,000 times before you have one person that will go through the process. And then out of the people that will go through the process, maybe only 10% of them will actually finish health-wise and actually completing the donation. So that's why it's so important to reach all these people to find that one person for that child or an adult, because we also help adults in Michigan.
That's
even
beautiful.
though we're called Kidneys for Kids.
That's beautiful. So let's talk about Driving for Life. When are you taking off?
I take off. I leave Memorial Day. I leave 2 days after Memorial Day on a Tuesday, the day after Memorial Day on a Tuesday, and I start out in Chicago. And so then I go on a 4-week track out west. And I'll be seeing you in Los Angeles the first week of June. And then I loop back around down through Phoenix and Albuquerque and Dallas and San Antonio and come back up to Michigan through the Midwest. And this is kind of becoming a routine. I rest for 2 weeks in Michigan. Then I go back out for 3.5 more weeks down to Florida, back up the East Coast. And every year we finish now in New York City with my friend Elaine Perlman. Elaine is a non-direct kidney donor. She's also a Columbia University. That means she donated to somebody she just donated, and she knows her kidney went to Washington. She doesn't know who it went to, where it went. She just knows that it was a simple transplant. And she is one of those people, and there are donors like that. They just want to know that they did something good, they donated, but they don't want the relationship like I have with Jessica. Because this is one thing you're asked, when you donate, okay, what if your kidney fails? What if it doesn't take even when you donate it and there's no function, let alone if it does fail down the road, how are you going to feel? So, as it becomes, that's part of something, you realize when you become a kidney donor, that you have to have the faith that, this is going to work and it's going to follow through. And if it doesn't, you have to be able to deal with that fact too.
Yeah. Well, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen.
That's
so it
right.
takes faith to do all great things,
I was getting the end of the Driving for Life trip, but anyway, so I finish every year in New York City with this friend. She's a non-direct kidney donor. She took 5 years off as a Columbia University professor after she donated. She followed actually her 19-year-old son, Aby. He donated anonymously when he started college and ended up on Good Morning America meeting his recipient. He didn't know where his kidney went. And she followed him. And then she got so involved in seeing what it did for people that she is working on legislation for 5 years on her hiatus from Columbia University. So I get to New York, I stay with her husband and her and Land, and they're vegetarian. So I have a very healthy visit. And in fact, she is going to have a channel on our TV network. She's going to be doing a vegetarian cooking show she's a vegan kidney donor. So she's doing that right out of her New York City apartment.
I'm definitely going to be watching that show because I'm trying to be a vegan too. I'm a pescatarian. I like fish, but I'm not giving up my butter. I'm not doing that.
Okay.
I'm not doing that. Thank you, Brian Martindale. You are absolutely amazing. I am so glad that our paths have crossed, and I anticipate that they will cross again very, very soon.
Yes, you're going to be involved here, and we're going to bring you to our channel. And I want everybody to watch this summer our channel and Driving for Life, which you can also watch on kidneysforkids.org. Follow us across the country this summer, and you'll see good content building week by week and different shows on this channel that'll motivate you to do good. Put it that way.
And how can we support your efforts? By visiting your website, right?
Yep, kidneysforkids.org. Whether you go through our PayPal giving fund or our Zephy platform, if you go through our regular donation platform, we get all of the funds. They don't take any kind of fees. So that when you see Zephy on there, it's a very safe platform meant for nonprofits. And yes, we can use your support. We have this TV channel that is providing education and attracting living kidney donors to support. And then we have our trip coming up across the United States and our educational program that starts in the fall with our local students.
That's right. So I want everybody to, give their Starbucks money to kidneysforkids.org. You don't need to drink Starbucks, no way.
There you go. There you go. You can make a better cup of coffee at home.
Yeah, let's support this great, great work that my friend Brian Martindale is doing. I am so proud of you. And I pray God's strength upon you and his blessings and his provisions, that the angels of the Lord will be with you as you drive all across the country to raise awareness about the importance of organ donation.
Thank you so much. And I'm
safe.
so honored to do it. And I'll be so honored to meet you when we meet in person finally.
I can't wait. We're going to have a healthy lunch.
Yes, we are. You bet we are.
Thank you, sir.
And we're going to do something. We're going to do something live when we're out there too.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me tonight. God bless you too.
God bless you too, sir. Wow. Wasn't that incredible? Brian Martindale of Bay City, Michigan is doing a great work through his program, Kidneys for Kids. And I want you guys, and promise me now, you're going to go to his website at kidneysforkids.org and check it out and make a donation if you can. And also, don't forget to please visit abouttransplantlife.com. We have updated our website, you guys. It's really, really cool. I started a new blog called Life After the Gift, and I want you to check that out as well, and continue to support our efforts. Will you do that? So thank you for joining me tonight. Next week, my very special guest will be Oliver Hale. He is an incredible man, and I can't wait for you to meet him. I ain't going to tell you more about him because I want you to come and check it out for yourself. All right? May God bless you. May God keep you safe is our prayer. Thanks for watching. Peace.